and a big welcome to Q&A number 2 of the Masterclass series that we are currently running, where you get to make your very own sea buckthorn face cream. I'm Lisa Shirley, Community Manager for Formula Botanica, and I'm joined here by the lovely Beatrice and Brooke. Brooke, if you want to say hi.
Hi everyone, my name's Brooke and I hope you're enjoying the Masterclass so far.
And Beatrice?
Hi everyone, my name is Beatriz. I am the cosmetic scientist here at Formula Botanica, and it's a pleasure to have you here today.
And I can see loads of people already logging on and the numbers just going up. And at present, I think you would have been given the opportunity to watch 6 lessons. So if you have a question about the masterclass as you've been going along, whether you've made your emulsion, whether you've watched all 6 and you've been adding botanicals, whatever question you have, you can ask it now. And the lovely Brooke and Beatrice will help you along your way. I'm just going to give a shout out to a few people. I can see Edmund, Sandra, Liz, Janice, Afro Beauty Academy. I've seen them before. Ivana, Kate, amazing. Got people from Cheshire, loads of people from the USA again, Canada. USA is definitely winning the round for this one. Milwaukee, I can see Africa, France. That is amazing. Thank you so much. Please just do say hi. And I want everyone in the chat to just let me know what lesson they're up to. And there's no wrong answer, whether you've just watched one, whether you've watched all 6. Don't worry, just let us know. And there's still plenty of time to watch all the lessons, so please don't worry about that. So in this Q&A, we're going to try and help you with whatever stage you're at. If you have a question you maybe think like for the future. And we're going to be here for about an hour, I think, on and off. And we're going to get to it because I know that you guys have a ton of questions, and Beatrice and Brooke have been pouring over them in the chat, and we are going to start with Patty. So Patty says, do you have to put essential oil in the face cream? So Beatrice, do we have to?
No, not necessarily, not if you don't want to, but we like to have the scent and properties of the essential oil, so we added it because, well, we love botanicals and we love essential oils. But if you don't want to add an essential oil to your face cream, just remove the amount of essential oil and add more of your hydrosol instead.
Yeah, absolutely. So we love them, but you don't have to. That's absolutely fine. Okay. So Kelly says, can we use the same preservative across all formulations? Brooke, are they all created equal?
So no, they're not. So generally it's best to pick a preservative that works for the formulation that you're working with. So we've tested Preservative Eco for the Masterclass cream. We know it works. Preservative Eco is one we work with a lot and we all love it. So it's a great preservative in this instance, but it's not something that you could just necessarily use in every single formulation. And you might not be able to swap every preservative for Preservative Eco as well. So you might find there are some preservatives that you can swap, and we give you some ideas of things that you can swap and customize your formulation in lesson 8, so stay tuned for that. But no, not every single preservative will work in every single formulation.
Great, thank you. Okay, so a question from Wolf Eagle, great name. When working out botanical weights, should one always base this on the 5 points noted in lesson 4 criteria? Brooke, I'll come to you for that one. What we say?
So when you're working out your weights of your botanicals, 5 points, lesson 4 criteria. I'm trying to think now which 5 points those are, but your lesson, I would say it is something that you tend to look at when you're working with your formulations and when you're weighing things out. We do give you the basics to work things out with, but there's different ways of doing it. So we've taught you the basics, we've worked through the basics for you, but in this masterclass for this cream, but as you sort of develop your formulation skills, there are more different ways you can do it as well.
Absolutely. Okay, this is a great question from B. Chu Wheeler says, hello from the UK. We're in the lovely UK as well. Just had the first 6 lessons yesterday. We'd like to ask about the vitamin E on lesson 5. When should we add that to our formula? Now, this is a question is being asked because we do have vitamin E as an option in the workbook. And we've done that because you can use it with both. You can use it with vitamin E or you can use it without, basically. So really good spot. But it's totally up to you. But what else would we say about this, Beatrice?
Well, as Lisa said, it's optional for you because we tested this formulation with and without vitamin E, and it works both ways. It's stable, it's safe to use. So we added it as an option in the workbook. So it's not mentioned in the video, but you can use it if you want up to 0.5%. Then you reduce the same amount of your hydrosol. But it's up to you. If you already have it and want to use it to give more antioxidant protection to your formulation, you can use it. But if you don't have, don't worry. You can make your formulation without it. It's optional.
Yep, absolutely. So good question. Really good spot. So brownie point for you two. I can see more people joining. Got Denise, Madeline, Shelley, Doss, Irene, Brianna. I can see people saying they've seen all 6, finished lesson 6, will watch lesson 6 after the live. Some people are saying, some people have just watched 2. Some people are still waiting for their kit. If you're at that stage, please don't worry. Just try and keep up with the lessons if you can. Take as many notes. Make notes in your workbook because you've got that workbook for life. As long as you've got that, watch the lessons and make notes. You can always make your cream a little bit later because we know that sometimes you have to wait for the kits because they're coming from all over the world. So please do not worry. Okay, so Edmund asks about sanitizing. What's the most effective way to clean a mini homogenizer? Beatrice, what do we say?
Well, I think it depends on the type of homogenizer you have. If you can detach the homogenizer tool, it's easier to clean it and sanitize it because you can just wash it. And for some, I know that it isn't possible to detach the tool, so you have to be more careful to not put the battery underwater. But you can just clean it with hot soapy water and then spray some isopropyl alcohol at 70%, and then let it dry.
Great. I know that Brooke usually loves the preservative questions, but I'm sorry, the cleaning questions, but I thought I'd mix it up. Okay, Brooke. So someone says their emulsion is very thin. I made it a few hours ago. Did I do something wrong? So what do we recommend?
So not necessarily, depending on the process that you use to make it. Sometimes the emulsifier takes a few hours to thicken up. Sometimes it needs up to 24 hours to reach its final consistency. But if it is still very, very liquid, then possibly you might want to try making the formulation again and seeing if it does the same thing. You would need to sort of go through, make sure you're checking that you're using the correct amounts, using the right ratios between your oil and your emulsifier. So make sure that all the percentages, the amount you've added is correct. And if you're still finding that you're struggling to get it to thicken, then you can add something like a natural gum, which will help to thicken it up a bit.
Great. Fabulous.
Just
go ahead.
Something I want to note. Always take notes on what you're doing because you'll probably forget it soon enough. So it's always important to write everything down. Then you can remember and compare it if you try it again and see if something different happens. Then you'll be able to check your notes and see if you did anything differently, if you maybe measured a small amount in a little bit more, a little bit less, and note down your temperatures, everything you can. This will make your life easier when trying to figure out what's happening.
Yeah, exactly. If you didn't write it down, it didn't happen. That's what we say here all the time. Okay. So someone says, I haven't seen information about the shelf life of our formulations. Did I miss it somewhere? So shelf life, if someone makes the cream as we've described it in the lessons, how long will it last, Brooke?
So generally, we've tested it to be stable for between 3 to 6 months. But shelf life is something that is determined individually. So your cream, because you've made it in a different environment with different ingredients from a different batch, it may not have the same shelf life as the one we've made and tested. So the only way of knowing exactly the shelf life of a product is to have it stability tested or challenge tested as well. And that's not something that's within our price range for when you're first learning to make creams. So generally we say between 3 to 6 months for the formulation that we've given you, but it will depend a little bit on your materials, where you've made it. But we cover this a lot more in later lessons as well. So you haven't missed it, it is coming up.
Exactly. Okay. Someone asks, will this group still be available after Masterclass? So I think they probably mean the Skincare Entrepreneur Mastermind group, which is our big Facebook group. We have about 100,000 people in there. I think there's about 30,000 people taking part in this Masterclass all around the world. So if you're not a member of that, please do jump in. I know Eliziani can add it to the comments You just click on that and join it, and you'll see tons of people adding their workbook selfies, adding comments, adding questions, and putting their pictures of their emulsions and their finished cream in there. So if you're not a member, please do go join and just tell us how it's going, and give us your feedback and post your creams. And there's no wrong cream. We just want to see your progress, and we just want to see you having fun. Okay. Someone asked this one. This is a quick one. How do we work out what is the amount of the ingredients to make the formulation? Well, the quick answer to that, I don't know if anyone else has any extra comments, but it's to follow the lessons. So that is the way to do it. We've structured the lessons. We've got the ingredients there for you. You just need to download your workbook, download your shopping list, and follow the lessons as we go along. Anyone else got anything extra to say to that?
No, for this
No?
formulation, we've done all of the hard work of working everything out for you. So you just need to use the ingredients and the amounts that we've given you in your workbook to make it nice and easy. And you should end up with the cream that looks exactly like the one that we've got. But sometimes there are differences, as I said, between ingredients. So you might find your sea buckthorn has a slightly different color than ours. But in general, it should be very similar as long as you follow the exact same amount.
Absolutely. Okay.
And if you want to learn how to create your own formulations, then you can take our courses, because there we explore more in depth how you can find out which amounts you use of every ingredient to make different kinds of formulation as well. So
Absolutely. Okay, this is a bit of a long one. We'll see if we can do it. It's all about the water bath. How would I do the water bath? If I was to put a Pyrex dish in a saucepan to hold the beakers, does the water need to touch the glass dish, or would the steam from the water below be enough to heat the contents of the glass beakers? Who wants to take this one?
I can take this one. I think it's easier if the hot water is touching your beakers, because if you're just waiting for the steam to heat everything, then it will take longer. And well, I think it answers your question.
Yeah, great.
That's very simple.
I would also add that you don't need the Pyrex dish and the glass beakers. If you've got glass beakers that are heat proof, you can put those directly within the pan of water. Pyrex is something like a Pyrex dish or a Pyrex bowl you can use if you don't have glass beakers. But if you've got the glass beakers, they should be, I believe it's pronounced borselite glass, that is heat stable and can take differences in temperatures. So just add your beakers directly to your pan of water, and that should be good enough.
Great, fantastic. Okay. So is any emulsifier safe and good for face creams, or is there some we should avoid? Brooke?
So there's lots and lots of different emulsifiers out there, and they are good for different things. So you might find that there are some emulsifiers that are good for face creams. There are some that are better for hair care products or body products. There's no sort of hard and fast rule. It depends on the whole formulation. I can't say I know of any emulsifiers off the top of my head that are a firm no for facial products. I don't know if B knows of any, but in general, it depends on how you formulate the product, and they have different consistencies. So some emulsifiers might give you a really thin lotion that you might want more as a body product. Some emulsifiers might give you a thicker cream. There's lots of different ways that emulsifiers work, and you've got lots of different options. So have a play around with them. But I wouldn't say there's any that I can think of that you'd have to avoid for face products.
Yeah, I think it's more about preference than you can't use this emulsifier to make face creams, because for some types of emulsifiers that make different types of emulsions, you can use higher amounts of oils. Then probably you wouldn't want to use such a rich cream with lots and lots of oil in your face, but it depends. Some people love it, some people don't. So it's kind of a personal preference, I think.
Sure. Okay, thank you. So next question. Oh, sorry, I can hear a noise in the background. How can we get the facial kit? Brooke, can you answer that one for us?
So I assume by that you mean the ingredients kit for the Masterclass, and we have lots of different suppliers all around the world that are doing kits for the ingredients for the face cream. So if you go into your study area, you should see a supplier guide. There's lots of different suppliers in there that we use to suggest to get ingredients from, and there's also a list that will tell you which suppliers have kits that will be available on the web page as well. So if you go through, have a have a look and see if there's one in your area, and then you can go and purchase one of the kits if you would like a kit. But if you want to make it yourself, you can use the supplier guide to find some more suppliers that are within your area. And we've also got our Amazon storefronts. We've got one for the UK and one for the US. If you want to use Amazon to buy some ingredients and your equipment, if you don't want to purchase a kit, you can then make your own. You're on mute, Lisa.
Sorry, Brooke, thank you. Okay, so Denise asks, how long can I keep my emulsion before adding botanicals?
Okay, in this case, we are making it step by step to make it easier for you to understand how to make your emulsion. So we are not adding preservatives until lesson 7, I think. So in that case, you can store your emulsion in the fridge if you want, but I wouldn't recommend you use it in your face or body or elsewhere, because then it can get contaminated even if you store it in your fridge. Same as food. Even if we store our food in the fridge, it can get contaminated with time. So we suggest you use this emulsion only for testing, so you can test the process, see if it works, or if you want to make everything at once, then you can wait for lesson 7, so you can make the lesson from start to finish, and then add your preservative, then it's safe for use. So I think
Great.
That's it.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so Patty asks, could the cream last longer in the refrigerator? And we do recommend you put your emulsion in the fridge after you've made that. But in terms of the completed cream, is the shelf life going to last longer if we leave it in the fridge? Brooke?
Again, you not necessarily. So it depends on the ingredients that you've used, their shelf life. This shelf life is determined more by the ingredients used than just the environment it's in. It could definitely help if it's kept cool and not left on a sunny windowsill or things like that. But it's more about keeping the preservative good long term and not introducing as many microbes to it. So things like if you wash your hands before you use the cream and make sure you use a little spatula or something to help get it out, and don't sort of keep dipping dirty fingers into it. That tends to help more. The refrigerator can help, but it's not necessarily going to make it last longer. Definitely, I couldn't tell you that for certain.
Great. Okay, so I know we mentioned vitamin E earlier, Beatrice. So Amal asks, when can I add the vitamin E? If they want to use it, when should they?
Okay, so we have the hot phases that are the water and oil phases that we heat. Then you mix it, make your emulsion, and when it cools down to around 40 degrees Celsius, then you can add your botanicals and you can add your vitamin E as well.
Great. Okay, so I know you like cleaning stuff, Brooke, so we'll go to you for this one. So how do you clean disposable pipettes before using them?
So the best way of cleaning any of your equipment is to use a dilution of 70% alcohol. So whether that's isopropyl alcohol, you could use ethanol as well if that's what you've got available, or rubbing alcohol that you can get in pharmacies, and that for things like cleaning wounds is at the right ratio as well. So if you just sort of pull up a little bit of alcohol and then leave them to dry, the important thing is that there can't be any alcohol left over in the pipettes. So generally, that's easier to use when you're doing glass pipettes, but because you can then drain them out, and you can take the tops off and let them drain. But if you want to be making sure they're nice and clean, then that's the best way of doing it, is to make sure you let them dry and let all of the alcohol evaporate off before you start using them.
Great. Okay. So Edmund asks, can you use a metal bowl instead of a glass bowl that goes on top of the pan for the double boiler method? Does it make any difference? Beatrice?
This is for adding the ingredients, I think. So it depends on the metal you're using. You could use, if it's stainless steel, I think, but usually we don't recommend using metal because some metals can interact with the ingredients. So it's better to use glass because it's more inert, or even some kind of plastic that doesn't react with the ingredients as well. But metal, I wouldn't totally recommend. I think if you can get glass, it's better.
Okay. So Jenna asks, how can we adjust the pH, Brooke?
If your pH is a little bit too high or too low, you can adjust it by using what's called a pH adjuster. And there's lots of different ones of these. You could use citric acid or lactic acid if your pH is too high and you need to bring it down a bit. Or you could use sodium bicarbonate or L-arginine if it's too low, and you need to bring it back up again. So these generally come in the form of powders, depends on which. You can either buy them pre-diluted or you can buy them in powders that you then dilute into different solutions yourself. You can mix it with some distilled water and make your adjusters that way. But they're quite easy to make, and some suppliers do sell them pre-diluted as well if that's easier for you. Then you just need to add a couple of drops and then test the pH again, and it should be around more where you need it to be.
Great. Okay. Edmund, coming in with the questions today, also asked, when watching the water and oil phase be combined, I saw that the temperature had to be 75 degrees. Can you heat the emulsion at a lower temperature? I'm concerned about compromising the integrity of ingredients. Beatrice.
Well, with this emulsifier, you can't, because it needs to be heated at this temperature so it melts and it works. Because if you don't heat it to 70 to 75 degrees, it will solidify too quickly before it's able to emulsify both water and oil phases. So probably your emulsion would split. But the ingredients that go to the heated phases, they are stable up to this temperature. So it isn't a problem to heat the ingredients to this temperature. Then that's the reason why we add the botanicals and the more sensitive ingredients later, after the emulsion is formed and has cooled down to 40 degrees. Then you add the more sensitive ingredients that can't be heated. But don't worry about heating these ingredients on the water and oil phases. That's not a problem.
Great, thank you. Okay, next question from Janice. Janice asks, can I use glycerine instead of glycerite? Brooke.
Yes, you can. So if you don't have a glycerite, then you can absolutely use normal vegetable glycerin as well. Glycerin is a fantastic humectant, so you'll still get all the benefits of the humectant in your product, but you won't have the sort of added benefits of the Papaya enzymes and things like that in there as well. But it's still a fantastic ingredient to use, and if that's what you can find, then absolutely it works as a substitute.
Great. Okay, I'll take this next one. This next one is from Sally. It says, when is the next class? And that's going to be tomorrow. So you're going to be learning more about preservation. I'm going to be talking about a few more things. If you want to think about maybe doing something with your cream. So it's going to be really exciting. So do make sure you tune in for that. And lesson 10 is going to be really special. And that is on Wednesday, I believe, at 6 o'clock. So, and I'll be in that one. So I want everyone who's joining this live to join lesson 10, because that is going to be loads of fun. Okay, this is probably a really easy one. Hester says, can I make 50 ml by halving the ingredients? Beatrice?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
Great. Okay, quick one. So Cheryl says, if I don't have Monotov, can I switch up with another BTM SO50 or even emulsifying wax, lipo wax NF? That's a bit of a tongue twister. Brooke?
So BTMS 50 or emulsifying wax NF, as far as I know, are both not natural emulsifiers. So they wouldn't work to substitute exactly if you want to keep your product being natural and Cosmos certified. They are, from what I know, they are good emulsifiers and they can be used in cream-based products if that's what you want and it fits with your ethos. But if you want to make natural ingredient products that use sort of Cosmos and EcoCert certified ingredients that can then be certified organic as well, they won't work for that. You'd need to have something like the Montanov 68, or you could use Oliven 1000 as well, or Poly Equal 2W is another good alternative. But those two in particular aren't naturally certified. So if you want that element to it, then you'd need to find one that is to substitute.
And lesson one of our masterclass is all about you thinking about what natural is and thinking about your formulation philosophy. So sometimes things are about a personal choice as well. We put this cream together and it's been tried and tested by our education team, but you can really do what you want, but we do recommend doing certain things if you want to consider your cream to be a certain way, if that makes sense. Okay. Next one. Amal says, do I have to sterilize the container for keeping my emulsifier? How do I sterilize my container? Brooke, I'll come to you again for this one.
So I think you mean the container for the finished emulsion, in which case then I would just swill it around with some alcohol again as well. So that isopropyl alcohol you use to clean all of your equipment, you spray down the pot with it as well. So if you're using a tin, you can just spray it in there. If you're using this cream is a little bit too thick for a pump bottle, but if you were using a pump bottle, you could pour a little bit in there, shake it, and let it drain out and let it evaporate off. But it's the same process as the rest of your equipment. You can just spray and leave it to evaporate.
Great. Okay, I'm not sure if we've done this one, but you can tell me. Is any emulsifier safe and good for face creams? Is there some we should avoid? Have we done this one?
Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
See, I can't remember because I read them. I'm glad you can remember. Okay. Okay. Someone asks, okay. So I followed the weight in the lesson. I'm thinking it's a bit light for a facial cream. Is there a way I could have thickened it up? Beatrice.
Well, you can thicken it up by adding some natural gums, as Brooke already said in another question. Like xanthan gum, for example, you can use a small amount, such as 0.3%, just to make it a little bit more thicker. But I don't know if you're saying it is too light on the skin or if you want more oils. In that case, you would need to change the amounts of oils in your emulsion, and that's a little bit more difficult, I would say, if you're just starting. And then I suggest you stick to the basic emulsion we are teaching you for now, and then later when you get more experience, then you can tweak the amounts and add more oils, tweak a little bit the amount of emulsifier. Then you can play around it a little bit more. You can add other ingredients that make it richer, like butters, for example. There are various ways to make it a little bit different and more thicker and richer. But for now, I suggest you don't change the basic formulation because it can cause it to destabilize and separate. So wait until you are confident making this one.
Great. Okay, thank you. Okay, so next one. Brooke, I'll come to you for this one. So how do I formulate the base of the cream from scratch if I do not want to use vegetal?
So you can use something like Olive M1000 or Poly equal 2W, as I've already said. These are really good emulsifiers that you can use the same base formulation for. So you could just swap those two out. We've tested them and they do work just swapping like for like. If you want to reformulate it completely with a different emulsifier, then I would suggest possibly if you're not familiar with formulation, it's something you'd have to learn to do. So possibly come and study with us because we teach you all of that from the base of how to formulate a cream right from the very beginning, right from scratch, with no idea of amounts or anything to start with. But for this face cream, you could swap it with a different emulsifier like Olive M1000 or Poly equal 2W like for like. But that's probably the only thing I'd suggest to do at this stage until, as Beatrice said, if you're confident and happy with formulation, then you can start changing more things. But to start with now, I'd keep as close to the original formulation as you can.
Great. Okay, so someone says, if I don't add a preservative, how long will it last? Beatrice.
It's hard to tell, but probably 1 day or two, because it can get, it's a very short shelf life if you don't add preservatives, because it contains water, and microorganisms can grow when they have water and nutrients present. So it's hard to tell because we don't see the microorganisms, and you don't have a way to test it at home if you're just starting and you have basic equipment. So Well, it's sad to say this, but it won't last long, and it's not safe to use it after 1 or 2 days if you keep it in the fridge. And well, I know it's sad, but that's what happened.
The way it
And
goes.
yeah, and it's complicated because even if it gets contaminated, sometimes it takes a while for you to have visual signs of contamination. So even if it looks good, it probably is already contaminated. So it's not safe for use if you're not using a preservative.
Great, thank you. Okay. So Denise kind of covered pH a little bit, but Denise asks, what would cause the pH to be too high? What could someone have done wrong? Brooke?
So generally with the formulation we've made, it shouldn't be too high in particular. You would have to have sort of have an ingredient that's got a particularly high pH that's higher than what we've used for it to sort of be up sort of much more than sort of 5 to 5.5. Generally speaking, because we're using hydrosols, and our hydrosols and our extracts are the only sort of ingredients that have a pH to them, unless one of your extracts has a substantially higher pH than the one we've been working with, it shouldn't mess with the pH too much. It becomes more of an issue if you're using things like surfactants and things that naturally have a higher pH by themselves, but as we're not working with those to start with, it's not something that generally is too much of an issue, so you shouldn't have a pH that's too high. The only thing you might find is if you've managed to introduce something that has a high pH during the process, so maybe if there's a little bit of soap left over that hasn't sort of been cleaned off properly when you've washed your beakers or something like that, that can have an influence. So as long as you're making sure your beakers are thoroughly clean, there's no soap residue, no washing up liquid residue on there at all either, generally it shouldn't be too high.
Great. Okay. Next question from Sonia says, I've just registered today. Well done. And just joining the session. Will this video be recorded to be available after the live lesson? So wherever you're watching this live now, if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, you'll be able to come back and rewatch it. And the lovely Liziani is taking a timestamp. So we'll have a timestamp underneath of all the questions, and give us a few minutes, or not a few minutes, a bit more than that, to get all of that together, and we'll add it underneath. And we should be able to help you with all the questions if we've got to your question, or if you see a question someone asked and you would like to know more about it. So yes, it will remain here forever. The lessons, however, will end on May 7th. So please do watch them just as soon as you can. You know, there's loads and loads of time to watch them. Just take a little bit of time out your day, write as many notes as you can, and then come back to it, even if you don't have your kit yet, and then you'll be able to make your cream. Okay. So this one I've seen before, actually, so we'll put this one up. So Jenna says, does the expired date of the active ingredients affect the final product expiration date? Beatrice?
Well, usually it's not a problem if you use the ingredient within its expiration date, so it shouldn't be a problem, unless your ingredient already has signs that it's gone off, even before the expiration date. Sometimes it happens. So always pay attention to the scent of your ingredients, the color, if there is any kind of change. But if it looks good and it doesn't have any signs of going off, then it shouldn't really impact the final product expiration date.
Great. Okay. So Joanne says, so I know we haven't got to the preservative lesson accessible yet, but will we be in touch on how to calculate the correct amount to use so we can apply the knowledge to other formulations? So kind of like a two-part question there, but Brooke, what would you say?
So we do cover a little bit about using preservatives, obviously, in the lesson. In terms of calculating the correct amount, that tends to come down to the preservative you're using. So the supplier of the preservative will tell you roughly how much you need in order for the preservative to be effective. It depends on the preservative. Some preservatives work at 1%, like preservative eco. Some need more, like 3 to 4% to be effective. So it'll depend on the preservative. It'll depend on the other ingredients you've used, how many of them contain their own preservatives, and sorts of things like that. So it's a very complicated topic that's a little bit more than we can go into in depth in the lesson, but we're going to teach you sort of the basics of how to know which preservatives to check, how to preserve the actual product itself. But in general, it is not something that sort of we can cover in one short lesson. It is a slightly bigger topic to be able to calculate the exact amount you're going to need. The only way of knowing for certain if your preservative is working as you would want it to is to have your product challenge tested, which is not really within anybody's budget at the moment. So it's something that you will need when if you ever get to the stage of formulating to sell your products. It's something you're definitely going to need to invest in then. But when you're learning, we recommend you just start by practicing with the formulations that we show you.
Absolutely. We can only do so much, Joanne. So you have a lot to be getting on with at the moment. Okay, so Patty says, sorry, I missed this answer. Can I use my own oil? I infused it with calendula flower, olive oil, and put it away for 8 weeks, then strained off in glass. So can people use their own oils if they want to? Beatrice?
Well, it's really hard to tell because it depends on how you made the oil, and you need to really be sure it's safe and that it doesn't contain any amount of humidity or water. It depends if you used dry flowers, dried herbs. But if everything is okay, then yes, you could use them. But something that's a little bit different in this case, because we are using almond oil for the heated oil phase, and if you add the same amount of infused oil, then you probably will lose the properties of the herb you infuse the oil with. So it would be a little bit different, and you would need to add it in smaller amounts at the cool down phase, which is the phase where we add the botanical ingredients. So you would use it, for example, instead of the sea buckthorn extract we are using. So it depends a little bit on different factors and how you want to use it and at which amounts you want to use it as well. So.
Great. Okay, so Hester asks, so the neroli hydrosol and papaya glycerite I have has a preservative in it. Do I have to use less preservative tomorrow? Brooke?
No, so we've accounted for using preserved ingredients in the formulation that we're showing you. So no, the amount shouldn't change necessarily, just if those two have preservatives in it, that's fine. It's more about when bigger amounts of ingredients have lots of preservatives in them. So it's a complex topic. There's a little bit more to go into than we can go into here. But for tomorrow, just stick to the formulation we've given you. That should be fine.
Great. Okay. Okay, so what is recommended if you increase the botanicals? Is it water hydrolate that is to be reduced proportionately? Beatrice?
Yes. In this case, if you want to add a little bit more of an extract, for example, then you need to reduce your water or hydrosol in the same amount you are adding the other ingredient.
Great. Okay, loving the quick, succinct answers. We're going to get through these. Okay, are there any essential oils that definitely should not be used in this formulation? Brooke, I know that you can't mention every single one on the planet, but any general answer we would say to this?
So I would say it's definitely best to be aware of essential oils with low dermal limits. So that's things like ylang ylang or bergamot that doesn't have the FCF removed, so the non-FCF free version. They have slightly tighter dermal limits, so you wouldn't be able to use them in the same amount that we've used the essential oil in this formulation. So the reason we picked sweet orange essential oil is because it is safe for use at the amount that we've allowed it to be used at, the amount we've allocated to it. But in general, there are some other essential oils that have to be used in smaller quantities, and I can't go into all of them. There's a whole list of them with different sensitizers and that to be aware of. So that's something that we cover, again, more in depth in our courses because it is a big topic, and it's something that we teach our students to be able to calculate and to be able to understand. But to start with, I would recommend sticking with the sweet orange essential oil that we've used, or doing a little bit of research and using sources such as IFRA, which is the International Fragrance Association, to find essential oils that don't have strict thermal limits that you can use around 1%.
Great, thank you. Okay, next one. It's a bit of a long one. So in the third lesson, the ratio of vegetal was on the higher side. Can I safely increase a second oil, like acai berry, say by 3 grams, and then dividing equally the two oils and still achieve a thick emulsion? Does that make sense to you, Beatrice? Can we tackle this one?
I'm reading it again so I can understand it. So let me see if I got it right. So you want to add a little bit more of oils, like 3% more of oils, and divide this amount between the almond oil and acai berry oil. Is that it? Can
I
someone
think
help me?
that's it, yeah.
I think that's it. Well, I think it wouldn't be really a problem because this amount of emulsifier would handle a little bit more of oil. But as I said before, I think it's easier if you, especially if you are starting to formulate with us, then just stick with the basic formulation. And then later, after you got this formulation right, if you want to test and experiment a little bit more, then I really think you could try it because it's always a good experience to try things out and figure out if it works for you. But usually increasing the amount of oils or reducing other ingredients, changing the formulation takes some experience to understand how to do it correctly. So for this amount, I don't think it would be a problem. But if you really want to start formulating and change this basic formulation, then you need to experiment a bit or study with us because then we will encourage you and teach you how to create your own formulations.
Absolutely, great answer. Okay, so next question. So we have used a whisk for a 100-gram batch. What should be the batch size to use? So if we're using a stick blender or homogenizer, I think they're saying, could they do like a bigger batch size? Would that be okay, Brooke?
Yeah, so I generally use something like a homogenizer or a stick blender over 200-gram batch sizes because that's generally you need to have bigger beakers for the homogenizer and that to fit in. 100 grams, 150 even is fine to use a mini whisk, but when you get over that, when you start making bigger batches, then you're going to want something that's takes some of the arm work out of it for you. But yeah, I would recommend. I've done 150, and you do have to sit there and scrape all of the cream off the blender for a while after that. So I would say 200 plus is probably the sweet spot, but that's just from my experience. You might have a stick blender that has a different size to mine. So have a test out and see where you find your point is for you. But for 100 grams, you can generally do that with a mini whisk. And it's higher than that, higher than 150 usually, that you need to start incorporating stick blenders and things.
Great. Okay, now I've only got a few questions left. So if you do have a question, please do drop it in the chat and we will try and get it to in this next hour. Okay, so next one. Brooke needs to be hydrated, so I'm definitely coming to the end. Okay, my skin is quite oily. Will this be okay to use, Beatrice?
Well, yeah, we formulated this cream so it can be used by people with different skin types, but people's skins are different, so test and see if it works for you. Usually we say we suggest you test it in a small region of your skin just to see if it works for you, but there shouldn't be any reason why it wouldn't work for oily skin, so I don't think it should be a problem.
Great. Okay. Next question. I think we've done this one. So my question is, can you tell me if I have a pH digital tester for soil that I only use maybe twice? Will it work for testing the pH with my formulation, or do I have to get the pH strips or specific pH digital tester? Brooke.
Yes, so you'll need a specific kind of pH tester or strips to use to formulate. The soil tester won't work for testing things like emulsions. You can get pH strips quite easily on Amazon. Try and get sort of universal ones, not necessarily the ones used for medical reasons. try and get ones that are used for cosmetics. They are the best to use in this situation. You can also get pH meters that are used for creams and lotions. You could get one that's used for water and dilute your emulsion, but that's a bit more complicated. We'd recommend starting with the strips because they're easier to find and easier to get a hold of. But the soil pH meter is designed to test the pH of something that's sort of drier, so it's got that sort of firmer soil-like texture, and it's not designed for testing an emulsion which has a sort of thick, gloopy kind of texture, so it won't work, unfortunately.
Great. And I don't think we've done this one, but ladies, please tell me. Should you always hand mix the emulsion in when combining the oil and water phase, or can you immediately use a mini homogenizer? Does it matter which is first? Beatrice?
Yeah, you can use the mini homogenizer when you're mixing the oil and water phases. That's not a problem. You can use it instead of hand mixing everything. I know that for some people it's a little bit hard and difficult to make everything by hand, so you can use a mini homogenizer. That's not a problem.
Next question. Okay, so I don't know how I'm going to pronounce this rightly. So Refillo, I think it says, does an emulsifier have an effect on the rubbing time of the lotion, Brooke?
Yes, it does. So the rubbing time, I think you're referring to an effect that we generally call soaping, which is where you apply a cream and sometimes it leaves that sort of white cast on the skin that you have to leave to dry down. That's called soaping, and some emulsifiers do that a lot worse than others. Generally, Vegetal, the one we're using for this Masterclass cream, has a pretty good soaping effect, so it doesn't take too long to rub in. Something like Olive M1000 has a slightly higher soaping effect. That's a bit more tricky to work with. There's ways of making it better. There's ways of changing the oil ratios and adding co-emulsifiers and things like that to make that better. But the emulsifier itself does tend to dictate more around how much soaping it has. So the emulsifier phase, the emulsifier itself, the oil and the co-emulsifiers and things you've added has an effect on that. But
Great.
To start with, it's easier just to find individual emulsifiers that are less prone to soaping. So, but Vegetal is a good one for that.
Okay, fabulous. All right, next one. This is one we don't really cover in our courses, but we'll throw it out there. I wanted to ask about adding animal products like camel milk and beef tallow to products and how they could be preserved. We do get people asking about adding it to the Masterclass cream, but what would we suggest, Beatrice?
Well, that sounds really different to me. Usually we suggest you only use cosmetic grade ingredients if you can. Of course, I know that some people want to use their own botanicals, botanical infused oils, or homemade extracts, but you need to be very careful to not get your formulation contaminated. And I really don't know how camel milk or beef tallow are processed, and if they are really safe for use. In this case, I'm not sure if they could get microorganisms into your formulation. So I suggest you stick to the basic formulation for now before starting to add other ingredients.
Oh, sorry, missed that one.
No problem.
Okay, yeah, no, I've just got 2 comments to finish. I think we've gone through most of the questions, but Elizabeth does say, I don't have my ingredients yet. It's on the way. Can I get help after 7th of May? So I have said it, but I'll just say it again just so everyone's aware. They will disappear on 7th of May. So please just watch the lessons, download all the free materials that the education team have put together for you, and take notes on the lessons when they're available, and just make your cream afterwards. We have people adding the cream like weeks after the lessons close down. We do need to obviously have a close date on the lessons because we put out so much content and we need to have a rounded thing, to be honest. So we have given everyone plenty of time to watch the lessons and take part in everything and all the free content that we've added. And I just wanted to finish on this comment from Joanne, who says, I thought it might be quite a complex topic. We answered her question earlier. Thank you for the information, really helpful, and absolutely, I can't believe how much really great information we're getting on this masterclass. So thank you, Joanne. We couldn't do it without you. The education team have worked so hard on putting this masterclass together, and we've got loads more coming out, but we really want to see people just finishing their face cream. It doesn't matter how it goes, just do your absolute best. please post it in the Skincare Entrepreneur Mastermind group and take a picture of your workbook selfie. Brooke is going to model a lovely workbook for us just one more time. I want everyone to make sure they've got this. I know Eliziani has dropped the link in the comments as well, and it should be in the description as well. And we'll put all the questions underneath. So if you have been watching this and you think, you know, you want to take, you missed the note or you want to go back and check something, just check in a couple of hours and we'll have all the questions listed underneath for you. And I want to see everyone in the Skincare Entrepreneur Mastermind group just sharing their progress, share your emulsions, share when you've added botanicals, share if you've done something different, share if you've added vitamin E and you've like done our secret little thing we added in the workbook. Just let us know how it's going, because we really do love seeing the progress that you guys are making. And thanks so much to Brooke and Beatrice for joining me. We'll see you again. And yeah, thank you very much, everyone. That was really, really great. Thank you all for your comments. You've been absolutely amazing as ever. There's hundreds of you on at the moment. And we will see you in the next Q&A for Masterclass. And good luck, everyone, with your cream. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Good luck,
everyone.
and I hope